Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you for this award of the BEM. For those who nominated me, I have a slight rebuke, but I thank you very much, and I'm very humbled that you decided to put my name forward. My most interesting hobby, I suppose, is music. It was always going to be a hobby of mine. I was brought up in a family that was always involved in music. We were doing concerts, chapel choirs, Eisteddfods, the Guild. And I was very lucky, I always said, when I was about 7 or 8, that my parents sent me to piano lessons. So over the years, as my family continued to sing much better than I did, I migrated to the piano stool to accompany them at so many local events. I suppose I have been involved in the Guild for many years. When I was a child, I was in the under 10 classes, and then later I was singing, I was writing songs, writing poetry, doing public speaking, but probably most known as an accompanist. And it was the late Gladys Skillicorn who approached me first if I would be interested in being a Guild accompanist. She had come out to adjudicate an Eisteddfod we had in Kirkmichael, and as usual I was playing for all the children to sing. And in my life I played a lot for Sunday school children, and in my role as a teacher, played a lot for children. And she said, "You're quite good at accompanying children," she says. "Would you like to be a Guild accompanist?" And so that's how it began, nearly 30 years ago. Over those years, I have played for some of the greatest singers on the island, and many children too. It was very difficult to decide who I would invite tonight, because I have played and made good friends of many of the singers on the island, and there are some of them here tonight. I always say I only ever played for 3 Cleveland medalists, and one of them's here tonight. That's Mandy, who tells me I actually played for her twice to win the medal. There was also Chris Brigazzi, who is away at the moment, and Karen Elliott. Karen cannot be here today, but she sent me a lovely message. She has a choir practice this evening, and she said at roughly 7 o'clock, well, it's a bit early, Karen, the choir were going to sing an arrangement I did of Ellen Vannon for female voices. And she said, "We're going to sing it and remember you at Government House." And that touched me very greatly. I have played for many great singers on the island, but I've also played for many who are just starting out. If you go along to Eel Verries or ploughing match concerts, perhaps just a mariner's service, or in the lovely little old London church. And recently, as it was said in the citation, I've been involved with Cloiderin, which is the Northern Theatre Group. And these are people who are not accustomed to the Gaiety stage, who haven't been to drama school or theatre school. And to encourage them to appear on the stage, make fools of themselves sometimes when it's a pantomime, but that gives me nearly as much pleasure as playing for a Cleveland medalist. We have one gentleman who he appeared in a play, and when we decided 3 or 4 years ago to put on The Sound of Music, he was asked would he be Captain Von Trapp. And we said, "Of course you've got to sing Edelweiss." He said, I don't sing, but we got him to sing. And then 2 years ago, when we did a version of A Christmas Carol, he actually had 4 solos, and he sang them beautifully. And to encourage him to get on the stage and sing, we're supposed to be putting on a pantomime. It was been cancelled 3 times. He's going to be Ebenezer, and he's going to do an Elvis Presley impersonation, but we wait and see will that actually take place. When I was a child, I didn't know very much about Kirkmichael. I remember going with my mother and my Aunt Ruby to one of the 2 Methodist chapels in Kirkmichael where they were singing duets at an anniversary, because we had family who were connected to both of the chapels. And apart from it being halfway to Ramsey visiting cousins, I really didn't know much about Kirkmichael until I moved there 47 years ago. And I have found it's a wonderful community to be part of. Of course, the centre of a village, a thriving village, is the village school. And Michael has a very good school. My husband went there, my children went there, and now my grandchildren all attend the same school. I've been involved as a governor. I've done some teaching there, but my fondest memories were in 1984, when the school was going to celebrate 100 years in its existing building. And I was asked by Margaret, would I help her put together a grand centenary concert? And the children would all take part, and they would do music from various decades all the way through the 100 years. And we tried to persuade some old scholars to take part. And whereas some of the teenagers and some of the ladies are very willing to sing and dance, we managed to persuade 10 old scholars, 10 gentlemen who had been to Michael's school, none of them, particularly young, but I'd written a little ditty, which I am wont to do, to the tune of Hometown, which was a Flanagan and Allen song. Instead of Hometown, it was Michael. I used to go to school in Michael. And led by Andrew Williamson, who was a very good singer and a Cleveland medalist, I had about 9 other gentlemen, none of them who were really singers, but were willing to get up on stage and sing this little song. And one of them even wore shorts and a school cap. And that has been one of, I always think, my greatest achievements. And also, at that time, I was asked to write a Michael School song. And I wrote a song for the occasion. And it's wonderful that in every year since, the school still sings the Michael School song. And if you go in the main entrance of Michael School, up on the right, on the wall, there's a printout of the chorus of the song. And it's wonderful that they're still singing the Michael School song. And another important part of a village community are the churches. As I said, there used to be 2 Methodist churches in Kirkmichael, and I now go to Ebenezer, which is the one that's open now. But the other church, Park View, is the home of the Michael Playgroup. The Michael Playgroup is a wonderful playgroup. We have one of the founder members here tonight, and we also have the present leader of the playgroup. I actually worked there for a few years when my children were small, and the playgroup is going very strongly and has great connections with the school. And in the other part of the building is used for the Michael Badminton Club, which has a few teams that compete in the island. And I can honestly say there's more people go through the doors of Park View that actually go through the doors of our churches or our worshipping communities. But it's a very thriving thing. I say I'm a member of Ebenezer Chapel. We're not great in number, but we are a church family. As I say, I preach and I play. I always say I've had the honour of preaching in the most northern chapel on the island, which is in Bride, and also in the most southern Methodist chapel, which is at the Howe. But one thing I'm very pleased with is the way that the Methodist Church in Kirkmichael works alongside the parish church. We have many joint services: Christmas, harvests, Pentecost, remembrance, anniversaries. We were to have our first Easter Day service together this year, but I'm afraid with the lockdowns that never happened. And we also have something we call Family Fun Praise, which is a more informal church service, and we try to do something a little different. And I'm aided in this by Tom and Shirley, who are here tonight. I have to try and find songs and music relevant to some Bible story that Tom comes up with. we make things. Tom does experiments that don't always work, but that's more fun, isn't it? And he's also very good at writing little sketches. And I'll just give you an example. We were doing the Annunciation of Mary, and he'd written this little sketch where Mary comes to her parents, and she says to her parents, "I've had a visit from Gabriel. I am going to have a baby." And the parents say to each other, "Who Gabriel? Is it Gabriel Cannell the farmer? Is it Gabriel Quirk from the shop? Or is it Gabriel Call-it?" So it's quite a little joke we often joke about Gabriel Call-it. But we've had some interesting services. Just before the first lockdown, we celebrated the Jewish festival of Purim, which celebrates the story of Queen Esther in the Old Testament. And the vicar and her husband had been in Jerusalem during Purim, and they'd seen that everybody dresses up and it's a great pageant and it's a great festival and it's great fun. So we decided we would do the same, so we all wore funny hats and I wore a clown's wig, which doesn't quite go with the church service, but I'm very proud of how we work together. But perhaps something that was mentioned in the citation is the Michael Community Housing. In years gone by, when an elderly person in the village could no longer cope living in a big family house, they would have to move out of the village, probably to Westlands and Peel. And when David Cannon became our MHK, he made it his life's work to provide community housing in Kirkmichael. I remember him knocking at my kitchen door and asking me if I was willing to join a committee that was working towards setting up a community housing. I sort of assumed it was because I was the wife of the captain of the parish, but he sort of said no, he wanted me to do it. And I thought, well, maybe I can be useful in some way. It was a bit of a struggle, took a few years. There were those in the village community actually called it pie in the sky, didn't they, David? They said it would never happen. But with a very generous donation from the Skull Foundation, we were able to start building. And over the years, we have raised money in all sorts of ways. Summer lunches, coffee mornings, concerts, golf tournaments, some wonderful open afternoons at Bishop's Court on Tynwald Day, and by some means or other we always seemed to procure the military band that was coming over, and it was a wonderful afternoon. Not so if it was drizzling, which did a couple of times. And then of course we raised money by selling refreshments in the White House field during TT and Grand Prix, and that was really great fun. Very long hours. I used to arrive at about 7:30 in the morning. David would be there supervising the cleaning of the portaloos. Pat would be supplying food and necessary things. Alf would arrive to direct the traffic. And the ladies in the sheltered housing would be busy buttering the bread to make the sandwiches. And we had great fun there. We met a lot of very interesting people. Particularly if there was a New Zealand rider would come. Pat had a great conversation with the riders that came from New Zealand. But the highlight perhaps at lunchtime, when things were a little quiet and Pat had provided a nice lunch, in the corner of the marquee there would be a table, and there would be 4 learned gentlemen, I give no names, sitting in the corner with either a beer or a glass of wine, discussing the past, present and future skeet and scandal of Kirkmichael. And we used to love going and having a little eavesdrop to see all that was happening there. But the community housing is thriving. Over the years we've had some very good wardens, and the present warden and her staff have done a wonderful job in the last 18 months caring for the residents. I go in to visit and I do a little act of worship twice a month still, so I still have connections with the community housing. There's lots of other things going on in Kirkmichael. There's the Heritage Trust, which organises speakers, outings, and of course the famous Eel Very, which sadly did not take place this last year, and is connected with the Manx dialect plays, which I think is the only group on the island who performs the Manx dialect plays. And we have our horticultural show, which we're hoping to have this year. And the village people, they sponsor, they steward, they take part, and it's a great community event. In England, they talk about the lockdowns have actually revived the community spirit in communities. But I think the community spirit has been in Kirkmichael for a very long time. A lot of us, a lot of people, a lot of organisations, and we do help each other. I can remember when in 2013, when in the West Coast we had a snow event, and there was no snow in Douglas, and there was no snow in Ramsey, and there's no snow down the south of the island. But the firefighters were there, doing shopping, collecting medication, clearing footpaths, and generally helping out in a time when quite never happened before. And another instance, when the music festival was 100 years old, they decided to introduce a class that had been in the festival many, many years ago for a village choir. And I thought, I know lots of people in Kirkmichael who like to sing. So I put up a little notice and asked a few people. And together we put forward a choir. I think there were 28 or 29 ladies, gentlemen and children. And we went and competed in the music festival. We did it for 2 years, but sadly no other village, no other community was able to raise a community choir. So we stopped competing in the guild, but over the years, those, I can't call them remnants, but those who had those who had been members of the village choir would come together occasionally, and when it's Christmas, again this was mentioned in the citation, I put together a Christmas choir for the community carol service. And this last year we had 5 new members. Whether they'll come back next year, I don't know. But we have a community choir, and the community of Kirkmichael is still singing. I'd like to thank all those people who have been alongside me in all my activities over the years. I'd like to thank my family. There's quite a lot of them here today, as Sir Richard knows. My husband John, who always says he never knows what I'm doing or where I am. I think he does really. And my 4 daughters, who over the years have been dragged along to things, have participated in things, endured things, and in latter years helped to organise many of the activities that I do. But I must just tell you something, that they have a great grudge against me, my 4 daughters, and I tell you what it is. When I was in charge of the Sunday school, I had to decide who would take the positions in the nativity scene, and over all those years not one of my girls was ever chosen to be the Virgin Mary. And they still hold that against me. I'd like, wherever he is, to thank my brother Charlie, who has been a great support and help to my family over the years. And I'd also like to pay tribute to my parents. We were brought up in a family that our parents were always out in the community doing things. The commissioners, the chapel, the WI, British Legion, the Moran Memorial Playing Fields, the Crosby Cricket Club, I could go on. And we were brought up to take part in the community life. My brother was awarded an honour 6 years ago. I am very honoured to have been awarded this today. If my parents were looking down, I hope they would be very proud of what Charlie and I have achieved and the people that we have become. Just before I finish, I was in the car with my daughter Ruth the other day, coming back from the Symphony Orchestra concert. Where are you, Ruth? And she said to me, "Mother, are you writing a little ditty for the day?" And I said, "Oh no, it's not the sort of thing, it's not the sort of event where they want a little ditty." And she looked at me and she said, "It's what you do, Mother." So I'd like to finish with just a few lines of verse for today. Sir Richard on the telephone, he said, you should sit down. He asked me if I would be willing to accept an honour from the Crown, a British Empire medal, which he must needs invest, and with that we would have to get together, so he'd pin it on my chest. I have enjoyed, I'm very proud, of all the things I've done, writing words and music notes, and just to have some fun. I have been lucky to have met so many friends along the way. So thank you all for coming to share my special day. Thank you.